Hey guys, this is Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. Do you want to play your notes quickly but be able to play in tune at the same time? Well, today we're going to talk about that. Hi guys, so today's video is number 3 in an 8-part series about effective practice techniques. Now today we're going to be focusing specifically on scales. Now, when I first started teaching many years ago, I noticed a lot of my students weren't playing really in tune, especially at recitals, and I was really discouraged by that. And as a result, make a long story short, I started really emphasizing scales in the lessons. Well, it didn't take very long after that. My students, no matter what level they were at, even if they were just, beginners, they were playing really in tune. So I am a firm believer in scales. When I was a kid, I didn't particularly like scales, but man, I love them now. You want to make sure that not only do you warm up every practice session, but you always incorporate a really solid scale routine. So scales are really great for a couple primary reasons. Number one, they are excellent as a warm-up because in our warm-up, we're trying to avoid playing really fast physically or mind-demanding pieces. And so scales are really great because when you first start out playing them, you play them really slow and you have a chance to warm up your fingers and warm up your mind, and it'll set the stage for you to have an amazing practice session. So the second reason that scales are so great is that because of your scale routine and the fact that you start off playing really slow, you have a lot of time to focus on a lot of technical aspects that will make you overall a much better player. First of all, you're teaching your fingers exactly where to go. Now, if you're a beginner, you can put some tape on your instrument. But the thing is that your body memorizes where you put your fingers when you place them in the same place every time, over and over again, through repetition. As you place those fingers down in the same spots all the time, your body will memorize where the fingers go. And if you play a variety of scales, you're going to be practicing how to play every note that you can possibly play on your instrument. The next thing that you can improve dramatically is your intonation. Now this goes along with the first point. You're teaching your fingers exactly where to go. Well, when you're playing your scales, especially when you're starting them off really slow, you're able to really focus on your intonation. And you can make little tiny adjustments to make sure your pitch is really perfect. So not only are you teaching your fingers exactly where to go, but you're teaching your mind what the correct pitch is. So now when you go to play your pieces, your ear is all set up. Your ear is warmed up, your mind has been taught, your body has been taught, and now your intonation is going to be much more consistent. The other reason why playing your scales is so fabulous is because you're able to focus on other aspects of your playing, right? So you'll be able to focus on your setup, on your other techniques. So you can focus on your bow hand, you can focus on your bow arm, you can focus on how you place your fingers, you can focus on the shape of your hand, you can focus on the shape of your wrists, you can focus on the way that you stand. So every aspect about your technique and your setup can be addressed while you're playing your scales. So really, scales are not just a way to just warm up. They really will make you the player that you want to be. Okay, so how do we practice these scales? Well, I've put these scale patterns below, and these scale patterns will work if you're an absolute beginner or you're a professional player. They start off really slow and are really easy, and then they get really hard. Now, these scale patterns will work with a 1 octave or 2 octave or a 3 octave scale. The fast patterns really won't work for a 1 octave scale very well, but if you're only playing a 1 octave scale, you don't need them anyway. Okay, so a couple points to remember when you're playing your scale. Number one is always use 4th finger. That's what I advise anyways. Just always try to use your 4th finger. Why? Because you want your 4th finger to be strong. You want it theoretically to be as strong as your other fingers. So just use your 4th finger. Another reason to use your 4th finger is that you want to warm up your hand. So when you use the 4th finger, you're causing your hand to stretch more, which will warm up your hand faster. And it'll also increase the stretch overall in your hand if you're always using that 4th finger. Okay, the other thing is if you are a beginner, just put some tapes on your violin, cello, viola, whatever it is. Just put some tapes on there to make sure that you're putting your fingers in approximately the right spot, and then check the very specific pitch where you're with your ear while you play. The third thing is make sure you always use a metronome. Never play your scales without a metronome. That's metronome equals perfection. It's going to make sure that your shifts and your dropping your fingers and your extensions and everything that you do while you're playing your scales is nice and even. So really always use that metronome. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few of the patterns. I'm not going to play the same scale every time, you know, 1 octave, 2 octave, whatever. I'm just going to play some notes so you can see how they work with the metronome. And like I say, I'm not going to play through the whole scale because it just takes up way too much time. But you want to remember, when you get really used to the scale patterns, that you want to play one pattern after each other. Okay, so the first pattern is very easy. It's just 1 note per bow, 4 beats per note. And I'll put the metronome on. Now the metronome is on a 62 beats per minute. And we never change the metronome. The metronome's always at 62 beats per minute. Okay, so the first one, you check everything that you're doing while you're playing. You check your technique, you check your setup, and you really listen to your sound and your pitch. Okay, and then back down the scale. Okay, the second pattern is just half notes, 1 note per bow. Okay, the next pattern is quarter note triplets. Now this pattern is kind of tough to learn, so just be really patient with yourself in trying to figure out how to play this one. If it's causing you too much trouble, you could just skip it and wait for a later date, but it does take a lot longer to learn this pattern than the others will. Okay, the next pattern is just 1/8 notes. Okay, the next one is 1/8 note triplets. Okay? Okay, and then there's a lot faster patterns that you can play as well. So now I'm just going to play the patterns in succession. I'm just going to start with the second pattern, just so you have an idea of how it works. Okay, so when I only play a 1 octave scale, then sometimes the patterns, they don't really work as well with a 1 octave scale. So as soon as you can get up to a 2 octave scale, then the more advanced patterns will make more sense. As soon as you can get to a 3 octave scale, then you can be free to play all of the patterns and reap all the benefits of, you know, that the patterns have to offer. Okay guys, so I hope I've answered a few questions. I hope that I have been of some help. And you know, you can have a lot of questions about these scale patterns, and so if you have any, please ask me. I will reply. I reply to most of the YouTube comments. Just put them below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that alert bell so you get a notification when I create a new video, which I'm doing quite a bit these days. And don't forget, here at Kennedy Violins, we're all players and teachers, so we're always happy to answer any kind of questions you have anytime. Thanks, guys.